Hey, Angelo here. I know it's been a while since I last made a tutorial, so I guess it's time I finally deliver something for you. Today we're going to talk about sprite transitions and different ways you can approach them in your work. When transitioning sprites, we have to take into account the different circumstances that your character sprites are through. For example, if your character is in midair or underground, the way you transition sprites can vary a lot. If your sprite is grounded, you have to make sure that the sprites are aligned to the feet. And when the character is in midair, you might have a lot of more freedom to do transitions, but preferably keep the sprites aligned to the torso. And you also have to think about the different speeds of the transitions. Do you want a very quick transition like a smear frame? Or do you want a slow and more delicate transition? For simplicity's sake, we're gonna apply our examples on a character standing still. The most basic, simple, plain chicken and rice transition style that you can use is the squash and stretch method. I'm saying this because literally every single classic Sonic animator that I know uses this style. And to this day, I still use it too. Why? Because it's quick and easy to use. All you have to do is take the start and end pose, add a couple of keyframes, and squash and stretch accordingly. It's simple, really. And of course, if you want something more delicate or slow, you can't really rely on this squash and stretch method, especially if you want a more dynamic and interesting character animation. So what can you do instead? Well, before we get to that, let's talk about the principles of animation real quick. For the principles of animation, we need to understand one of them, and that is arcs. All living things move in arcs. You can see it from the most subtle movements down to the movement of our fingers, to the movement of our limbs or our whole bodies. You understand that it's a living and breathing being if there's movement through arcs. If you see more linear movement, you feel as if you're looking at a robot. So a good way to do transitions is by making your characters follow an arc in their motion. So knowing and understanding what arcs are and how we can use into our animation, we can always take the squash and stretch method and alter it so that we can make the characters follow an arc. So for this transitioning style, the skew and distort will be your best friends. Which one you use between the two is really just your choice. But me personally, I like using the skew. So, like in the first method, take your start and end pose and align them properly. The next step is that we're gonna have to think of the arc that we want our character to follow. You can either draw in a lot of Okay, like I was saying, next thing you need to do is make the character follow an arc. You can draw that arc in another layer, or you can just straight up wing it. And once you got the arc down, what you need to do is create the keyframes and make the character follow that arc using the skew and the squash. A quick tip for this is that you can use keyboard shortcuts to make the transformation the way you want it to. By pressing the Alt key, you can transition smoothly. And be sure that for good timing, make the skewing more and more prominent as you go through the start, and then lessen it out as it eases out. That gives it that good, smooth transition that we all know and love. As you become more advanced, you might find a few things that could be interesting. You can even try to add in small rigging for the arms so that you can make the transition look even more natural. And you might also find out that there are some specific cases where you don't really need to do all this transition work. More specifically though, when you make fighting animations and combos, you can take a look at your character's attacks and check the start and end pose and make sure that they actually connect. That's something I talked about in the combo tutorial. You should watch that. It might help you a little bit. And it could even come down to your animation style. Me personally, I'm not using the sprite transitions as much because I'm relying a lot more on rigging and animating on 2s and 3s, and that might make rigging look even more faint. So at times I just don't do the skewing or stretching. I just change the pose and that's it. But all these changes really come down to personal preference. And that's pretty much it for me, honestly. Like anything in life, the best way you can improve is through practice and finding out what works best for you. It can happen to you that as you grow more advanced, you can even figure out a way to transition your sprites your own way. And you can't really do that unless you step out of your comfort zone and try new things. These transitioning styles are merely just tools. What I want you to really do is to try and keep on experimenting. Don't be afraid to do something new every day. And that's basically it. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. See you later.